We're going to turn to Ukraine now, because for the last few months, authorities there have accused Moscow of forcibly taking Ukrainian children to Russia. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said that more than 2,000 children may have been deported. Well, now a CBS report has brought new evidence of that happening. 16-year-old Ivan and 15-year-old Maxim were living in an orphanage in Mariupol when Russia invaded. The boys said that they tried to flee, but they were captured and they were held with 20 other children, some of them as young as 8.
Russian forces took us away.
Were you afraid that you would never come home?
I had such thoughts, yes.
Well, for months there have been warnings about this happening. This was Ukraine's ambassador to the United Nations back in May.
Russia continues its kidnapping of Ukrainian children. After forcible transfer to Russia, they are illegally adopted by Russian citizens.
Well, here's Russia's response to those accusations. This is Moscow's Children's Rights Commissioner telling President Vladimir Putin that Russian citizens have big hearts and that they are lining up to take the children. Ukraine, however, is calling that propaganda. The Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk has been helping relatives and guardians track down their children and has been negotiating their return.
It's very hard. It's my destiny to bring them home. One 12-year-old girl had to dig a hole to bury her mother. They tried to bury her brother too, but his corpse was too heavy for them to drag. I've seen small children whose hair has turned white.
So just some of the statements there. Dr. Evelina Ohab can join us live now. She's been looking into this. You're the program lawyer for the International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute, and you've been raising awareness about the forced, what you describe as the forced taking of Ukrainian children into Russia. I just wonder, in terms of the numbers, Volodymyr Zelensky was talking about 2,000. Is that something that you would agree with?
Thank you very much, Kasia. We believe that the numbers are much, much higher. In terms of the 2,000 number, that refers only to children from Donetsk and Luhansk. And indeed, a few weeks ago, the UK government sanctioned the Russian Children Rights Commissioner Maria Lvova-Belova because of her involvement in the forced transfer and adoption of the Ukrainian children, and that referred to the 2,000 number that you mentioned. And of course, she stands accused also of orchestrating the new policy to facilitate the forced adoptions in Russia.
So when you say forced adoptions, just in the most basic terms, what do you mean? What happens with these children?
So, of course, those children are subjected to forced or illegal adoption. It means that they will be adopted in Russia without any kind of consideration of their best interest, without even checking whether they have parents. For example, of course, we know that Ivan and Maxim, they were in an orphanage, but at this stage, we are not sure whether they have living parents. This may have been covered by the CBS, so they may have looked into it. But ultimately, many children in orphanages in Ukraine, they have living parents. So, of course, they should be consulted, they should be informed, and of course they should be given the option of having their children back rather than deporting or forcibly transferring the children to Russia and then subjecting them to forced illegal adoptions over there.
And I know that you've been visiting people who've been trying to help these children. You were in Poland, and you perhaps concerned about a black market in the sale of these children? Is that something that we are really looking at here?
Yes, we've been in touch with Dominican sisters who are in Poland who are helping Ukrainian children, both in Poland but also in Ukraine, and they inform us about a black market. So some children are being abducted by Russian soldiers and then put on black markets. And so, of course, with those stories, we are just hearing them every now and then, but ultimately there have been no investigation into the issue. We need to collect evidence of such atrocities, because ultimately they are international crimes and the perpetrators need to be brought to justice for those crimes.
And when you talk about crimes, international crimes, what does this mean for Ukraine's identity as a country, seeing so many of its children go missing? The bigger picture, what does this mean for this conflict ongoing?
So, of course, in relation to the abduction of children, forcible transfer of them to Russia, and them being stripped of their identity, we may be talking about a possible prohibited act under the Genocide Convention, under Article 2, to in terms of transfer of children from one group to another. And indeed, the issue has been already looked into by the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights and New Line Institute. And indeed, they looked into the issue of this transfer of children from Ukraine to Russia, and they identified there is a serious risk of genocide against Ukrainians. And there is definitely enough evidence to suggest that this is one of the methods to bring this possible genocide.
Dr. Ohab, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. Dr. Evelina Ohab from the International Bar Association Human Rights Institute, looking into this forced adoption of Ukrainian children in Russia. Stay with us here on Outside.